Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. Good evening. Welcome everyone to the Hawkeye Sidekick hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined this week again by Kieran Collins and Ruairi Walsh. Lads, how are things?
Good, Mark, yourself?
Very good, man.
Yeah, great. Yeah, all good. Got a repeat of last year's All Ireland final, but I suppose we have to review the All Ireland semi-finals, see how the games are won. So it'll be Limerick versus Galway, Kilkenny versus Clare to review. And also, if we have time, we'll look at the Senior Camogie All-Ireland quarterfinals and also maybe a little bit of reaction from Ruairi on the semi-final draw, which took place last weekend. I suppose, first, guys, let's look at the chronological order. I suppose Saturday evening, we had Limerick versus Galway. Last week we'd kind of dubbed this as being quite a titanic struggle, and it certainly proved that for 25, 30 minutes. But I suppose, Kieran, that third quarter adjustment from Limerick, very pivotal, and the result was never in doubt in the second half. I suppose your thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose how the game started is what we expected. Galway to come out with a bit of fight, and I think they were the team in control up to that 25th minute. Really impressive part. A lot of their play. I think players who had been struggling for form all year or part of the year, like Kilcannon being one of them, who really was all over the field and got 3 points early on. And when you see Conor Cooney zipping around and getting scores easily, you're like, fuck, this is going to be a long day. But they were impressive, and they were. I suppose they have been in parts this year, but they haven't done it for full 70 minutes. I think you look back to the Leinster final, that the second half they were 8 points down. That second half, where they came back at Kilkenny and turned it around to go 2 up. I think it was similar to that. They were, they looked really impressive. But then 25 minutes gone. I think after the goal chance, which Mike Casey cleared, I don't know, did he know much about it? But if that went in, it's a 9-point game, and it's a different game then. Had that goal gone in, but I think that was the changing point. I think Conor Whelan probably came a little deeper than he had been, and I'm not sure if that was the changing of the game, but Limerick just seemed to take over. I think that the last I suppose 10 minutes they outscored Galway by a couple of points, and they would to go in one down. And I think that second half, then, there was we know Limerick is a third quarter team, and they historically have done well in the third quarter, come out second half and made the changes to what Connacht sees fit and go at it. But I think I suppose the first 10 minutes wasn't much in it, but after that I think Limerick just started pulling away. I don't think it was a case that Limerick were just that good. Galway couldn't hold them. I think it was a case that, to me, it looked like Galway threw in the towel. I think once Limerick went 4 or 5 points down, that was it. I didn't see any fight from Galway there. They were a shell of the team that had come out and started the game. And I suppose really, without being harsh on them, like it's probably what we know of Galway in the past as well, where they can be hot and cold, and I think they have been that way this year. And I think for Sheffield, when they're looking back, it hasn't been a good year. It probably hasn't been a few good years. Like Kenny have won 4 in a row Leinster titles. And it's what is more than likely every year is nearly a 2-horse race. And I think for me, Galway have gone backwards this year. They have unbelievable hurlers. Maybe they need a little bit, like similar to Cork. Maybe they need to drop a few hurlers and bring in a few workers. There's probably a few passengers in the team. I think Nyland, I've said it a few times this year, I think he's been carried for frees alone. He's not doing enough work for me in open play. And I think the problem's all over. But look, I suppose to concentrate on Limerick, I think I won't say they were back to what the best we've seen, but I think really, Galway didn't give them much of a fight. But I suppose, look, it's good to see Cian Lynch back in the field. I think he was a little bit sloppy in the first half, especially, but he gives you that vision, like the ball he gave for Reid for the second goal. Not many guys can pull off them types of passes, but I think that game will stand to him, and that will do him the world of good going into the final. And I think I'd like to grow with Hegarty, hit a little bit of form as well. So probably a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde performance in Galway, but I suppose from Limerick point of view, delighted to get over them, and 9-point win and into the final. I don't think they'll definitely won't think that they're world beaters again after that performance, but nonetheless, it's a good result. And I think comparing the two teams, I don't think that Galway game took much out of the Limerick team compared to what Kenny would have gone under, to get through Clare. So hopefully, injury free and I suppose a 2-week turnaround is a quick turnaround towards the final.
Yeah, indeed, Kieran. Ruairi will get you in there. I suppose your reaction to that 9-point win from Limerick.
Yeah, I know Kieran is right in saying it wasn't Limerick at their very, very best. What we've seen, it was their best this year by a long shot in the second half. They were just, I think we've used the word before, composure about Limerick. Everything they did was compose and thought through, and Galway, in a way, I suppose, tactically played into their hands by bringing them back, because there's no better team, I think, in the history of the game that are able to play the ball out as Limerick can, find the loose up the field and then give a quality delivery into them. And by reducing a player in the forward line, you're just giving them that opportunity to that every single time they get possession. But it was funny, like, it reminded me actually a bit more of the Mayo Dublin game from the week before in the football, where Mayo came out and with total Dublin and goal chance, a bit like Galway did, and then suddenly it was a white flag and a bit of a collapse completely once they were 4 points. It was a win along those lines, so I know it was a West of Ireland kind of thing, but they were like their next door neighbours, Mayo and fell apart. And the most disappointing thing about it was, like, it definitely looked like their effort completely that way in terms of their desire to get on the ball, and their fight just dissipated in the second half.
Yeah, certainly, Rory, because where my seats were just about 2 seats back from the Galway bench, and I thought just the opening period, the open exchanges really did kind of exude the energy that the Galway team on the pitch and off the pitch were doing. But for me, Henry Shefflin, particularly when the adjustments were required, just felt he was so involved in the game that the key decisions, the key adjustments, he just wasn't reading it. I mean, from a selector perspective, not one selector really went to him at any given point in that first half, particularly in the early and the second half. So I think from that perspective, it was a 5-6 point breeze here, Kieran, as well. I mean, I don't know what the live TV cameras would have done it justice, but there was a nice substantial breeze for Galway in that first half. And really, speaking to a few friends there in the Hogan stand, it kind of, for me, Limerick going in at 1 point down at halftime, I think they were blessed here, Kieran, to be perfectly honest, given how the things went. The Brian Cannon chances, you said here, that goes in, I mean, I think it's a completely different ball game. But I mean, the readjustments, I thought it was just a case of the adjustments from both sides here. Limerick really kind of realising that the work rate wasn't there in the first 15-20 minutes. Now, you can talk all you want about the Nicky Quaid break, but again, subsequent to that, Galway were still on the ascendancy up until about 10 minutes before half-time. So I suppose, Kieran, from the Limerick perspective here, there is scope for improvement, and particularly with an All Ireland final coming up against Kilkenny, a slow start like this will spell disaster for Limerick.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. I think start on the breeze. There was a fairly strong breeze there, and I think even if you had been going in 5 or 6 points down, you probably wouldn't have been overly concerned because because of that breeze. But I suppose for Galway, I'd say going in 1 point up probably felt like they were going in a goal or two down because of the 10 minutes before half time. They couldn't lay a glove on Limerick in that 10 minutes, and the Nicky Quaid break will be the talk of the other counties, but this is happening all over the field. There's players going down now. They throw the helmet off, so it stops play. So I think maybe something needs to be done about this. Maybe that if you do go down, you have to be taken off the field. I think this might be the only way will stamp it out of the game. But I suppose because it's Nicky Quaid, and I suppose it's happened before, but I said it's happening all over the field. But I think, Mark, with Galway, I think the changes, the likes of Tom Monaghan coming in and Conor Cooney, I just think it was too late. I think the game was over that when they came into the game. I think Tom Monaghan tried his hard, really fought well. I think Conor Cooney didn't impact much. They put Liam Collins in front of goal. Obviously, good prospect of a young guy, but I suppose when you see him toe to toe with Dan Morrissey, it was like a 12-year-old boy standing beside him, just a size comparison. But I just think maybe was it due or maybe at half time to make a change, because I think the rot had started before half time, and I think they're probably a little bit naive to think that it wouldn't continue into that third quarter. just given historically how strong Limerick can be in that third quarter. But I think, the sideline was slow to make changes. And look, at the start of the game, if you're looking at the sub benches, you're thinking, maybe Galway have a stronger bench, having Monaghan and Cooney there. But I think it turned out to be different. I think, the same young guys that have been brought in for Limerick, especially this year, I think they've had a great impact. Cathal O'Neill coming in, I thought he, really impressive. And, this guy is putting his hand up for a jersey. He's not just happy to be sitting on the bench and brought on with 10 minutes to go because not a young guy anymore. But Graham Mulcahy, again, you can see why they are, trusting him and bringing him in, getting a great point as well. And I think that's the impact that, John Kiley talks about is the sub impact. And I suppose it wasn't necessarily needed on the day. But, if this game did come down the line, so I think like Galway's bench maybe looks stronger, but I think the return and the fight you get from Limerick's bench was a lot more.
Rory, we'll get you back in there. Hopefully the line has improved a little bit. But I suppose we were kind of talking about Galway and their lack of adjustments, particularly before half-time. Given when you had Gerard Hegarty, Tom Morrissey, Darren Donovan kind of getting back more deeper, really closing the space for Éanna Murphy and the Galway defence. But I suppose from your perspective here, in terms of where Galway go from here, what's your assessment of the Galway season?
Yeah, and I was just just before I got cut off there earlier, I was just saying how Galway seemed to do exactly what we thought they might try and exploit the Limerick backs and drag them around the place, and they were doing that pretty well at the start, and then suddenly got to 6 points as we saw. I think Shefflin kind of thought we have what we hold until half time, dropped the men back, invited Limerick on, and once Limerick got going, by inviting Limerick on, Limerick just grew into the game all over the pitch. A lot of their leaders came to the fore. Cian Lynch, I thought, looked back to his best. He won a lot of ball, spread it around. Okay, I know he didn't get on the score sheet like he can in the past, but was still a vital link in Limerick's play forward. So yeah, look, the Limerick half forward line as well, along with Cian Lynch, Hegarty, Tom Morrissey. Again, big games as well. Gillan as well inside. There was that one ball. All it takes is one catch over Dahi Burke. Where it's the threat, I suppose, that most teams are worried about. We've said this a few times. If he wins ball out in front of you and scores points over his shoulder, that's grand. Once he doesn't, catch that ball at the edge of the square and stick it in the net. Because for a long time, when Galway were well on top, that goal kind of kept Limerick somewhere, in the game. So yeah, look, it was just disappointing in a way from a Galway point of view that they didn't. As he said, Kieran, when the game was drifting away from them, that the substitutions didn't happen until they were out of the game completely. Limerick were the ones that seemed to get the fresher legs on and earlier, and they were a winning team just to kind of nail it home, which they did very well. And just not to preview next week, but I just think Limerick, for me, Limerick looked to be in a bit better shape than Kilkenny going in there. They're just getting back to where they were. They just have more threats up front as well, I think, now with more players hitting form again. And also they have a better bench too. So, but look, we'll get to that again. But overall, from a Galway point of view, it is for next year. They do need to put in, as we were saying there, a few more warriors into the team. It's surprising, for a Kilkenny man, where Kilkenny's pride themselves in having forwards that can win their own ball. That Galway have 2 or 3 forwards that have to be played certain type of ball. Evan Ireland, as Kieran said, is a prime example of it. He rarely wins 50-50 ball. And when you get up against the big teams, like the top teams, the All Ireland champions, need to try and overcome them. You need ball winners, and you can't be relying on Whelan to win everything inside. You need ball winners across your forward line, and that's something that they're lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. Based in Galway, I was with a busload of Galway fans before and after the game anyway. And look, I think the immediate reaction was, look, Limerick were far the superior team. But I think there is kind of philosophical notes coming out of Galway. Like I said, Castlegars, Jorn Moores, even Clymer Dailies, in terms of year 3 for Shefflin and where the improvements have to be made, because there does seem to be a gap has opened up here between Limerick and Galway. I mean, even looking at the league fixture in Salt Hill as well. So I think there's going to be a bit of soul searching here in Galway, particularly the run game, I thought as well, particularly, being so promising in the first 25 minutes, that stopped. And I mean, it really needed the half back line of Galway really to drive on a bit. And it never really happened here, Kieran. I mean, I think we can say about implosions and everything else, but we've been talking about leadership here in this Galway team. I mean, it came to the party against Tipperary, but when the questions were asked here against Limerick, unfortunately, not too many people really stood up to the plate.
For me, the warning signs were there against Tipperary. I don't think, I think Tipperary probably made, Galway look good. But I think on that day, Tipperary were woeful. Like, don't forget. And the fact that they were only a puck of a ball away from Galway on the day, I think shows you possibly how poor Galway are and possibly were this year. Go back to that first half against Dublin. Dublin have been, not average, I suppose, at best. And to take Galway to the cleaners like they did in that first half. Okay, look, Galway came back at them. And I suppose that collapse against Kilkenny. There's been so many frailties this year. They play it in patches. And for me, I can't see Shefflin being in Galway next year. I think, I'm sure he's going to, reassess their year and they'll sit down and they'll talk. And I would not be surprised to see, Shefflin walk away or maybe a mutual consent decision because I think, Galway have. Okay, look, he probably strengthened the squad. He's brought a few younger guys in and got them game time. But I think there's a lot of guys there that are probably close to the end, and I suppose and age is on the wrong side of the 30 anyway. But Dahi Burke, Grove McInerney, Conor Whelan, he's been around a long time. These guys have lots of miles on the clock, and I just think Galway went backwards this year. I was not impressed with them all year. And look, maybe he will be there, but I will be very surprised if Shefflin's in Galway next year.
Yeah, because Rory, I'll get you in there. I mean, even the warm-ups, like just be there at the start of warm-up. Galway's was just so physical. It was literally shoulders. It was like literally contact, whereas Limerick was very fluid, ball into space, into the hand. It was all very skillful, all very accurate. And I mean, from, let's say, kind of the Galway perspective here as well, Rory, I mean, like Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, absolutely superb, completely nullified in that second half. So there is some positives here, I would say, for Galway. But I think it'll be an interesting kind of off-season review here between the county board and also Henry and where things kind of lie here. I suppose, get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the main frustrating thing for Henry Shefflin and Galway fans in general is how they can turn it on and off within games. And like, that period of 10 minutes there when they came back against Kilkenny in the Leinster final was incredible hurling. Same with the first 20 minutes here. So if they can do it for 20 minutes, why can't you do it for 70? I know it's not as easy as just saying that, but the players, they have the talent. It's a lack of leadership in a way. Like when things get tough, they're lacking the guys to, as Kilkenny were able to do in the second half, they were able to hang in there and just keep themselves in the game. Galway just didn't seem to have the know-how to do that during the game. The game management was quite poor. And as well, you're like the difference in the second half as well for the likes of Conor Whelan was the Galway were no longer able to like spray a ball in. Everything was under pressure because the effort out the field, they were just being outworked. And then when the difference of quality of ball is going in, plus now with the way Galway set up, there was an extra defender as well, which made things even tougher. To their own detriment, as it turns out. Look, I'd say if the game could be replayed again and Galway were in that position, like I don't think you'd see them going as defensive as they did. But at the same time, they need to be able to take the punches and come, be able to bounce back. And that's the resilience is the biggest thing Galway are lacking, it seems.
Yeah. Like if you look back to the Limerick Galway game last year, like Galway took it on the stretch, and that was Galway being impressive. And people compare two teams saying that they're supposed to physically match, but if you're looking at that game on Sunday, you would not say that. Okay, Limerick, obviously big men, I suppose Galway do match them, but physicality wise, it didn't. They didn't lay a glove on Limerick, and they were pumped up. That first half, Galway were pumped up. They, celebrating scores, and to me, I thought Limerick were in all sorts of bother when Galway went 6 up. I thought this was going down to the wire, but really surprised to see it fold. But look at this isn't a reflection on Henry Shefflin. This is Galway hurling. Years gone by, we've talked about teams who've been hot and cold and threw the towel in too early. And I don't know what the problem is there, but I don't think it's a reflection of Shefflin. But many good managers have gone there and failed to deliver. And I think the fact that they've only won one All Ireland in the bones of 30 years with the quality of hurlers they have up there, it speaks volumes to me.
Just thinking back there, Kieran, I remember the game against Waterford. I think it was an Ireland quarter-final in Thurles when Dan Shanahan came in and Galway had dominated the game, and in the space of 5 minutes they threw it away at the end, down 2-0, and Waterford snuck through. It was back, I think Davy was over Waterford, John Lee centre back for Galway. So it goes even back all the way to then. Like for Galway to have won one All Ireland, that 2017 team with the players they've had over the last 20 years, like it's more than just something. It's more than just something on the pitch. Like it's something that's maybe culture-wise is just lacking that, that real, as we're saying, that real leadership, the kind of warrior thing that'll, like Galway aren't the kind of team that are going to kind of play badly and hang in there and get a win at the end. Like they have to be, out hurling for the whole game. It's something that just needs to be fixed, and it's not an easy fix either.
Yeah, certainly. No, I think there's been an awful lot of reflections, and I think we'll soon see it in the Galway Race Week anyway. Be various celebrities in Galway, hurlers probably there inside in Galway Race Week. I think there's plenty of reflections here in Galway. It's a sad way to end the season, particularly going into that Leinster Senior Hurling Final under traumatic Killian Buckley goal as well. So look, they'll have to dust themselves down and move on. I suppose Limerick here, Kieran. I mean, the halfback experiment with William O'Donoghue. How do you assess the performance of William O'Donoghue there, and maybe Darragh O'Donovan as well for the sporting role here?
Personally, I thought Will O'Donoghue looked a bit lost. You could see him on puckouts, especially. He was like, one of these guys in the foosball table over and back. I don't think he knew where he was to be, but I suppose once he got through the first 25 minutes, Galway didn't run at him, and I suppose it wasn't a fair, test to him playing six there. I suppose the one thing that shows how tight the Limerick camp is that, it didn't come out, and usually these things come out in the media before it, and I suppose the fact it didn't is a very good sign. I suppose, look, he was there. I suppose his main reason, like Hannon's main reason to be there, is for distributing ball. He was there as a blocker, and to stop guys running at the heart of the Limerick defence. But look, I suppose he did okay, but I don't know, will you see him there in the final if Declan Hannon isn't back? Kilkenny would really exploit that if that was the case. But look, I think it's, we said it last week. We didn't know how it was going to be to play without Hannon. He's always been there. He's such a big figure back there. He's a leader. I suppose, look, it was a tough position for Will to stand into, but I suppose he gave it his best, and he did okay regarding the circumstances. Like,
yeah,
I just thought as well it was clever out of the Limerick management that they didn't try and replace Declan Hannon with a similar type player. They just said we don't have another Declan Hannon, so they they went with a different type of centre back, and it just shows a bit of outside the box thinking that they don't think you have to replace like with like. As we know, like there's various types of centre back, and they went for what they thought would be the best fit against Galway. And look, as Kieran said, he didn't look like the perfect six, but he got through it fine. Look, I presume, and one thing I had heard from Limerick camp going out was how well Donovan had been going in training, and you could see that during the game. Like he dominated that middle third. Like he was the out of the four players in there, he was head and shoulders above. Really powered Limerick on, especially early in that second half during that spell, that purple patch Limerick hit. Like Donovan at the centre of everything.
I think he probably took on that distribution role that we know Hannon for, and delivering ball into Gillane. I think some of the balls he gave into, Gillane and Seamus Flanagan were exquisite. Like, and I suppose he's one of the young unsung heroes there. I think you start naming players in the Limerick team, he's probably one of the last names you'll name. I thought he had a really good game, and I think he's had a really good year. And I suppose it's credit to the hard work he's putting in. But I suppose it'll open up another question mark for centre back role for the final if Declan Hannon isn't fit. Because I don't see Will O'Donoghue being there for the final.
No, and to be fair, I think three other Limerick guys that really stood out. I thought David Reedy, particularly in the middle third as well. I thought he got on a mount of ball really, and he's just a superb hurler. In terms of his vision, the distribution, I thought very much on point. Dan Morrissey inside the full back line, particularly when Limerick were getting peppered. I felt so sorry for like Mike Casey there, particularly Dan Morrissey, but I thought Dan Morrissey, was very close.
He's very good. Very, very good, yeah.
He really did nullify Concannon to the extent that Concannon really did get to be a very frustrated figure. Even before the Barry Nash incident, there was an incident there with Kyle Hayes as well, particularly with the helmet being ripped off Hayes. I thought maybe James Owens might have done something there, but it just goes to show Dan Morris's performance. The Galway inside full forward line was completely frustrated, and what can you say about Kyle Hayes? I mean, second half wise, he was just an absolute machine going up and down that flank, supporting and defensively was just so on point. And I thought he just broke Galway's resistance, particularly in that third quarter. I mean, 1-8 to 3 points. I mean, game's over at that stage from a Limerick perspective. And look, they'll go into the All Ireland final. I mean, there's scope for improvement, obviously, but I suppose Kilkenny lying in wait here, Ruairi. I suppose, can we get your thoughts? I mean, hopes were high last week. We all had tipped Clare to do the job. I didn't know Clare played sweepers.
I was so sickened it took me until yesterday to actually watch the game back. And yeah, and basically what I kind of thought coming out of the ground was confirmed for me watching it back as well. Yeah, I suppose for me, the three factors that we lost the game was, first of all, management decision to go with a sweeper when we weren't used to it all year. Hadn't played it since the Davy days. Look, at the same time, had Clare gone in maybe a point or two down, and then there was that small bit of breezy bucket was still there, and if they had got to half time without conceding a goal, maybe, and then tore into Kilkenny's second half, then people would be saying what a great move it was to nullify Cody and the goal threat and so on. But like knowing Shane Murray from my own club, like for us in Sixman Bridge, he plays midfield, wing forward mainly, that time wing back. Yeah, he's a very versatile player, but I hadn't seen him playing sweeper in a long time. Ended up maybe when Dublin pulled the player back, he kind of ended up as a default sweeper, let's say. But it's probably I don't think it's something you can just switch to like that, without even doing it in league games or whatever. And look, as I said, had it worked out, we'd be lauding his genius. The margins are so fine, and when you look back at it, only for there was a lot of referee decisions as well in the first half that maybe Clare could have been closer than the 5 points at half time, looking at the general play of things. A second thing, I suppose, is the player errors, right? And if you go back to Clare's first game against Tipperary, we had this issue of overplaying the ball at the back, and this came to the fore again. And then all through our games really was shot selection and just decision making. Diarmuid Ryan has got 4 of the most incredible points against Cork from distance in Cusack Park. And ever since, I'd say he's shooting on sight, and maybe he scored 2 points out of 20 shots since that game. I've no harm with a guy taking a shot when it's on, but just shooting because they're in the opposition half. Especially with the players inside, you could see every time the ball went in, Clare were causing problems inside, especially when we didn't give Kilkenny an extra man in there. So look, that was factor 2, I suppose, and that goal we gave away, not just the nature of the goal, but the timing of it as well. And then the third thing, and it's a massive thing for me, was Colm Lyons gave an absolutely disgraceful display of refereeing. When I watched back through the game, I made a list of just and these aren't 50-50 incidents. These are major incidents. And I just thought RTE played it down a small bit as well. I know they don't like to go after the referee and things like that. But even from things like the injury time, 6 minutes, 45 seconds of injury time is all just injuries alone and the Hawkeye, not even factoring substitutions, and 3 minutes was played. And I just wondered if Clare were actually up by 2 or 3 points, would there have been 3 minutes injury time? I know, I'm not trying to call conspiracy or whatever here, but I just have a feeling there wouldn't have been. So even from the very first Kilkenny score, Owen Cody, as you remember, was fouled over by the sideline, and suddenly he retaliates, and himself and Rory Hayes are going at it. The referee picks up the ball. Owen Cody remonstrates with the referee because he figures it's going to be a throw in, but no, Lyons runs right out in front of the goals and drops the ball. That was how it started, and that's how it went all the way through. And I actually wouldn't blame him for the, not so much for the disallowed goal. Because at the time, the ball is pucked in high, and it looks for the world that Kilkenny man's about to catch it. So he blows a whistle thinking, that's the advantage over. He wasn't to know Kilkenny was going to drop it right down for Rodgers. I give him a benefit of the doubt for that one. That's the one that all the mainstream pundits were going after, was but I thought it was far, far worse than that. And so yeah, for me, look, if any of those 3 things had worked out, if management maybe, and it wasn't just for me anyway, it wasn't just going with the sweeper either. And look, they did rectify it at half time. But also I just thought our use of substitutions, Kilkenny brought on Cian Kenny in the middle of the field, Killian Buckley, gave them a real energy with 12 minutes to go. And Clare's kind of substitutions ended up, all in the forward line. And we kind of needed legs out around the middle at that stage. And I just thought that we were the likes of Cathal Malone, who got through a Trojan amount of work, were tiring. Kelly had got through some amount of work. Tony Kelly had to go out midfield when Ryan Taylor got injured. And I thought, looking back in the game, the amount of ball Kelly got on, he was back deeper than normal. Didn't waste the ball. He maybe took 1 or 2 shots, all right, that were from far out that tailed off wide. But his distribution was excellent, and I thought he had a great role in Clare's revival midfield, along with David McInerney behind him at wing back. But just Clare needed legs midfield to counter Kilkenny's, and that didn't really happen as well. So they're the 2 things. And look, Lohan's got a lot right over the years, and when he came into Clare, he really picked them up and made them a force. But just on the big day, there seems to be with the Keane Nolan, call against Limerick to put Keane Nolan in there last year. The changes made when John Conlon was injured as well didn't work out. Even the first round game against Tipperary, which we all thought was must win at the time, and replace Eibhear Quilligan, and we all saw how good a goalie Eibhear Quilligan is at the weekend with a debutant, when there didn't really seem to be any need to do that. These are major calls, and they all seem to be kind of going wrong. And as I said, Lohan has done loads correct, and you hate to criticise, but at the same time, when the margins are so tight, you just see what Limerick to compare with, and Limerick rarely get these big decisions wrong. So look, I'd say if any of those three things went, if we didn't get management decisions wrong, if we didn't have those massive player errors, and if we got fair refereeing, we'd be in the All Ireland final. So that's how tight things were.
Yeah, Kieran, I'll get you in there. I suppose your reaction to that Kilkenny win?
Jesus, Rory, you'd be running out of referees that you like in Clare. The James Owens is on the hit list before, and Colin Lyons as well now.
Maybe, well, the James Owens,
I'm after poking.
We won't go through that one again.
The beer now.
It's just funny. It's actually a lot of incidents. And that was a huge one. The whole country was laughing at the James Owens incident with the Aidan McCarthy and the penalty that time. And then we had at the very end of the Munster final, and I just thought the ref was just bad for both teams that day. But to finish the Munster final, he panicked with the crowd coming on and didn't give the free in, which everyone apart from John Kiley agreed was a free. So it's you can't. But if you're a Clare fan, it's hard to feel you're not being hard done by. It's just hard to take, especially this was I've been on the podcast here for 2 years and I haven't gone after referees. This is the first time I have, because this was as bad as I've ever seen.
I'll get to the game in a sec, Mark. But I think for Lohan as well, when he comes out in the media after game, it was the same in the Munster final, and then this weekend, St. Clair are finding it hard to get frees. I suppose people get sick of listening to that, really, don't they? Yes, there is decisions that impact games, and I think every county has had decisions go against them. We've had our own in 2019, that 65 that wasn't given, and it could have been made such a difference to Limerick's year. But I think coming out in the media, calling out refs probably isn't the best move anyway. And I suppose, but look, we leave that aside. But I think from the game, talking about management, I think we all talk about, would Clare have some sort of a hangover from the Kilkenny game last year? And I think the fans, the Clare fans, didn't. I think they were, slightly confident going up to that game that they were a better team this year. They've added a few players. Aidan McCarthy was back in. Mark Rogers was going well. Obviously John Conlon was okay to play. Cleary. So you had a fairly full team. But I think the management didn't have that confidence. And I think lining out with a sweeper straight away is a sign to Kilkenny that we fear your forward line. We fear what damage you can do to us. And I think it's a sign of fear going into that game, that had they gone 15-15 and played the way they've played all year, they played Limerick twice, won by a point, lost by a point, to what the people will say is the best team in the country. So to me, I just did not get that decision. I can see, obviously, Cleary was only back from injury, and I suppose Conlon had been out as well. So, was it to strengthen up the in front of goal? I just can't see any sense in the decision. Go, if it's something you've been doing all year, fair enough. But just to bring it in for an All Ireland semi-final, I think it showed that, was it lack of confidence in their own guys, or I think it was just an upper hand to Kilkenny straight away going into that game. But I think, look, Clare, I know I said it last week, they'll be a little bit rash in tackles, and it's kind of, you're saying pot called the kettle black with Limerick as well, being similar, but I think you see that with the 5 yellow cards. But Kilkenny bring that hard, that tough work rate. I think they're a little bit more disciplined in tackling. But when you're giving away frees, and you've TJ Reid on the opposite team, he's going to knock him over for sport. Did he miss one all day? So 12 points coming from, was there 11 points coming from frees from TJ?
And 165, yeah. And
exactly, yeah.
As well, wasn't there, yeah?
Yeah, so I think, and then added into that as well for Clare is the shots, the succession rate, 58% success from shooting. It's been an issue all year. I don't think it has improved. I think shot selection is obviously a major contributor to that. I think, we mentioned Ryan wing back, some stupid shots. I think we saw that with Limerick years ago. I think Dermot Burns was guilty of it before, taking on shots that should have been taken on. And I think also frees as well. Clare missed 3 frees. Had they been taken, I think Rogers missed 2 and Kelly missed 1. Maybe if 2 of the 3 have been taken, it's a 1-point game. You just can't miss your frees. You have to, and I think it's another issue that has been there for Clare. Definitely not so much this year when McCarthy was playing, but I think, over the last few years, like we've seen, Tony Kelly's a wonderful hurler, but he's not a natural free taker. I suppose it's a little bit of a struggle to have. You just know what you're going to get with Kilkenny. Like, they're just so honest. The work, they just don't give up. They're never beaten. Like, when Clare came back into that game in the second half and went, was a point or 2 up, we saw Galway fold when that happened to them against Limerick, but Kilkenny don't. It's not in them. And I think they have to be commended for that. I think on Cody as well he's in top form, scoring 1-5. I think Adrian Mullen was huge for Kilkenny, getting him back in the field, and that game will do him the world to go into the final as well. And look, we talk about Limerick starting to purr a little bit, but Kilkenny would have no fear, and I think they'll relish a chance at Limerick, and they'll bring a huge intensity. And as you mentioned earlier, Mark, if Limerick don't start well into that game and get straight at it, Kilkenny will. They will, and I think it makes for a great final. I think either 2 teams that would have come through would have made for a great final, but I think for Clare, like there has been issues there, little things that have been there all year, but they weren't rectified as the year went on.
Completely agree with you there, Kieran. I think you have to give credit to Kilkenny as well. I mean, Owen Cody's interview, I think they're getting that kind of motivation that nobody respects us, nobody gives us the credit we deserve. I think that's been a kind of a motivation factor for Kilkenny all year, but look, lads, TJ Reid, what can you say about him? Record point scorer in the championship, surpassed Patrick Horgan of Cork. Like, the 2 of them could be going hammer and tongs next year again. But I thought TJ Reid's work rate, like, forget about open play, like he was a fulcrum there. But there was one incident where he went down right to his 21-metre line, and basically it was a defensive clearance. Like, I mean, really did typify the Kilkenny work rate. And I thought TJ Reid was quite emotional at the end of the full-time whistle. Like, I mean, it's meaning a hell of a lot to TJ Reid, Richie Reid, and the rest of the guys here. I mean, it's a chance for redemption, Ruairi, for Kilkenny, 70 minutes away from recapturing Liam McCarthy. Yeah,
and 2 of the guys you mentioned there, like Owen Cody, TJ Reid, I thought they were heavily reliant on them. Owen Cody from play, like the whole half-forward line, Martin Keown, John Donnelly, Tom Phelan. Martin Keown, I think, had 1 possession. I think he hit the ball wide. And the other 2 guys, Tom Phelan, John Donnelly, they were all like wipes, like say. So against Limerick, they go out and have 3 forwards not performing. They're not going to beat Limerick. Like, they're going to have to, as we saw with Galway, if you don't have all your forwards at least firing and winning ball or whatever, you're going to be in big trouble. So look, that's one worry for Kilkenny. But Owen Cody, it was the nature of the scores he got. Like, they were like unbelievable scores. One's from sideline. He's just so physically so strong as well. I thought like Rory Hayes was doing fine them, but the minute the ball broke between the 2 of them, like Cody just had the physical strength to like get over in the ball in him. And then second half, I thought Adam Hogan did excellent for a long time, and even the points he got, like you couldn't fault Adam Hogan for the goal because came from the goalie, from the the mix up between the goalie and Rory Hayes or whatever. And he couldn't, but the points Cody got then like from the sideline is just incredible score. Like, you could say Hogan did everything right, and he still scored it.
I think he's only 22 as well. So much harder than everything.
Yeah, that's it. Both of them actually, two of the youngest players in the pitch. Yeah, just like there was a couple of things like there was the incident with Tony Kelly in the first half where Butler is kind of falling and probably fouls Tony Kelly as he's going over, and ref gives a free to Kilkenny. Kelly criticises, ball comes out, and ends up, instead of being a point for Clare for free in, point for Kilkenny. Just a few things like that. Like, that's a 2-point swing. Then there was the incident where Cody was going through and Adam Hogan swipes across him and it's the shot and goal. It's saved. Ref gets a 21, and then John Conlon gets absolutely poleaxed by Tom Phelan in like Michael Dignan said, didn't seem to be much in that. Conlon turned into him. It was a shoulder to the, like, these are the tackles we're trying to get rid of Ireland, right in front of the ref. No, right, he doesn't even reverse the free. He doesn't even give a yellow card. It's like as far as Conor Lyons was concerned, the incident never happened. So like, they're in a game of tight margins, like, and I know you're saying, calls go either way, but these are like definite calls that he was getting wrong. And look, I don't want to be harping on about the ref because he's not the only thing. But I think as well, the only thing I disagree with Kieran is like there's this myth about Clare's tackling. Like Kilkenny's tackling was all up, head high, in around the neck. Like if you catch a ball, there's a hurley in over your shoulder. There's nothing said about it. It's like, but I don't know. I think Clare are being unfairly highlighted at times. So refs have that in their head going in. And an interesting thing, and I just thought of it as well, Andy Comerford after last year's All Ireland. We all talked about last year that Colin Lyons had a fine All Ireland. There wasn't really any major incidents in it. It was, in a way, it's probably an easy All Ireland to ref. Andy Comerford, a big article after, was attacking Colin Lyons that he was so unfair in Kilkenny. And you'd wonder sometimes that these things affect, like a lot of referees are probably reading back over reviews, seeing how they people think they performed and stuff. You just wonder if some of this stuff gets into the referee's head. Like, look, as we said, I would agree though with the shot selection has not improved from game to game. And when you have such kind of, forwards that are such a threat, to be shooting from crazy angles from out the field doesn't make sense really. Like, and the biggest thing as well, like if Clare had gone with let's say Clare knew Butler was going to follow Kelly around the pitch. If Clare had put Kelly in corner forward and let him roam, you were dragging Butler out of there and leaving a 2-on-2 inside. And it's something maybe that Clare overlooked because it played into Kilkenny's hands. Like Kilkenny had to be fearful of what Clare could do up front, considering like what they had done in their, through Munster as well, and also against Dublin. I know you could say it was only Dublin, but still, like the forwards looked a real threat that day, and they had to have been a bit worried. They must have been only delighted to see Clare remove one forward. And just thinking back to the great Kilkenny team in Shefflin, and could you imagine them like Brian Cody taking out one of those forward lines, and to put in an extra defender? Like it just, look, it completely backfired that way. And the way Clare started the second half, even the way I thought they hit the first half, like there was an aggression about them that wasn't there last year, and they were really up for it. Like if they had the 6 forwards in when that was the case, you just wonder would it have been different. And I suppose what's really hurting is like they're so close, and in a game of such tight margins like that, as I mentioned, any one of a number of things, if it had gone right for them, they'd have gotten over the line, and no more so than like the officiating.
Yeah, I think you go back to, I mentioned last week as well, right, when I bring it up again, but the traditional counties, like, they're just so hard to beat. You suppose you look back in the numbers, and I know that's in the past, but it does stand up. Like Kilkenny and Croke Park are a different animal. They're so used to there, and they're just hard to beat. And it's just the work they bring, and I suppose that never say never the attitude. Like they're just, you have to commend them, really, don't you?
Yeah, it's just, as I said, it's their ability to when they're going poorly in a game to hang in there. Like they can concede, but they'll still, even the Ireland final last year against Limerick, like I thought they were being well beaten, in most departments on the pitch, and yet you look at the scoreboard and it's 3 points in it, and suddenly it's back to a point, and they're just unbelievable at just, they know how to manage a game, and they know when things aren't going right, how to go in. And look, TJ really helps with frees as well. Like any free from his 165 up is, I'd love to see his percentage stats. Like it must be high 90s. Like, in snooker, you see the pot success, like his free success is incredible.
No, it's incredible, Ray. I think it's about 91%. I'm compiling a few stats for the blog post during the week, and like he's not missed many, to be perfectly fair to him. But I suppose, look at Walter Walsh, Conor Fogarty with that vital flick in that opening half. Richie Hogan comes on for the cameo, but lads, can we talk about Owen Murphy? My God, is he the All-Star already locked in after that save on Peter Duggan? I suppose, Kieran, that was such a sensational save here and right at the end. And look, the Glenmore man is just producing again year on year.
Yeah, I think the two number one goalkeepers in the country are definitely in the final. I think that save alone will probably win that All-Star for Murphy. Just I suppose it's so late in the year as well. I think he's improved. I think, you'd have always given Quaid the one up on his distribution. I think, Owen Murphy has improved. The Kilkenny game has changed, and they're starting to mix it up a bit. But geez, that was some save. It was just a short reaction time, and that was a game changer as well. There were so many in that game. Like there were so many moments in the game that could have changed the game. I suppose the disallowed goal, the Fogarty flick as well, or the block. I suppose Clare had their chances, and I suppose on other days they might think.
He made a save from Shane O'Donnell, and it came out, and two Clare lads kind of got each other's way. Rogers, and I think it was Reedy, or it could have been Galvin. The two of them were on the rebound, and kind of ball ended up just going out. I think it was for 65 in the end, maybe. Yeah. But there was that moment as well. There was numerous moments.
Yeah, another day they could have gone in,
had the Duggan one got in at the death. and like went into extra time and everything. Like, it's funny how a lot of things would have been probably overlooked, and you know what I mean? It's just mad how it can all turn on a moment. And Quilligan at the other end, like, made phenomenal. Like the TJ Reid save with his boot in the first half.
Yeah, no, there's some great saves. I think the two keepers excelled, you know, on the day. But I think Owen Murphy's just going to be one of these generational players that you'll talk about in years to come.
And even there was a point, Jeremy Ryan one that he
stopped,
but he didn't just like the height he got in his jump to catch it. It seemed to be going well over the bar, and yet he just kind of glided up through the air. It reminded me of that Ronaldo kind of header there that time in the slow motion where he's gliding through the air, just hung there. And look, there's again like small things in it. Look, I was talking to you just before I went on air about timekeeping, and it's just an issue. Like, the referee is still in charge of time in All Ireland semi-finals. He contacts the fourth official to say what time is left. That's still the case?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, Rory.
Yeah, it's just, it's somebody like, can the fourth official not then say to the ref, sorry, Colm, there's actually 6 minutes injury time? And that wasn't an opinion that there was 6 minutes injury time. There was 6 minutes 45 seconds when I went back. So like, that's like, what it means then is if you have a free a minute into injury time, like Clare were hunting goals and everything when they could have been, there's another 4 or 5 minutes left, like just changes the approach. And to get something like that wrong in an Ireland semi-final, like Offaly went on the pitch over 2 minutes, you know, and got a replay and the whole lot. Like, this is injury time being halved. And it wasn't even spoken about afterwards. Dignan mentioned it at full time. He said, gee, I thought there'd be 6 minutes injury time when it went up. But afterwards, it wasn't even a talking point. And for me, that's a major talking point. You should not get the timing wrong in an Ireland semi-final. And when I didn't even include substitutions. I just went with injuries and the Hawkeye. You know, it's just something that shouldn't go wrong in an Ireland semi-final.
Surely he's a timekeeper, you know, particularly when you get to that latter stage. I mean,
I think the ref is enough to worry
I think so. You know, there's enough to be dealing with in terms of kind of the pace of the game, the key decisions, you know, even what your fourth official doing. Like, I mean, yeah, granted the substitutions coming in, but I think he should be fully aware in terms of these substitutes. I mean, should be maximum 20 seconds, 30 seconds per sub here. You're really looking at 5-6 minutes injury time per half, really, to be perfectly fair. But yeah, it's another talking point here, Rory, for sure. But I suppose going back to Clare here, Rory, Shane O'Donnell, I thought he looked like a man on a mission, even when he was walking on the parade. And he's a guy that just oozed class. I mean, Jackie Tyrrell had mentioned it before in the pre-game that he was a guy that generally worried Kilkenny throughout. And my God, I mean, I thought his performance from start to finish, he might have had a few lulls given Kilkenny's dominance, but my God, second half, he tried to pull Clare right back into it. I thought it was a very impressive performance from the Air Oakman.
Oh, he was brilliant, yeah. And that goal as well, just the power he got in it. And also as well, just he troubled them every time he ran at them. And he has this kind of way of just you know, he can change his balance like very quickly. And he has a big stride for a guy he's not the tallest man like standing next to him, but he's some leap, so strong in the air. And then just when he runs at teams, he just causes problems. He was excellent. I thought as well, David McInerney at wing back, especially in Watch the Back, was phenomenal. Like second half, he absolutely dominated that whole area of the pitch he was in. So look, Clare had some really good performers on the day as well. A lot of it, you know, when the team loses, like what's it? Plaudits go to the victors or whatever. Spoils go to the victors. But it seems to be the case in GA a lot, and you kind of overlook some of the stuff. Yeah, it's just something I suppose as well. Going forward next year, like the GA should all the time be looking to improve things as well. And for me as well, like Lohan on the sideline, he's getting too wound up in decisions on the pitch. And like, how can you actually, you know, watch a game? You have to detach yourself. Like, we've all been there in the sideline with teams, and sometimes you get upset by decisions, especially when you see like, you know, what you see is a mistake from the ref. But you have to like move it and go on. But it seems to just affect. And then that can feed your players as well. And when your players feel on the pitch that they're being, you know, wrongfully, you know, it's not the right mind frame to be in. And I just have a feeling there's a bit of that as well. Now, look, I suppose while the game is on, they can look back at it afterwards and think about maybe there was decisions against us. But while the game is on, like that can't be the mind frame. It has to be positive and keep going. And yeah, so look, again, small things, just so disappointing like that, you know, they were good enough to be in the final and aren't there. It's a long time to go until next year again. Yeah. And you're just worried with some of the age profile of some of the guys like John Conlon there, David McInerney, a lot of years in the clock. Shane O'Donnell, I heard rumours beforehand this could be his last year. I don't know how true that is because he's absolutely flying, but I don't know, is there work commitments coming in there as well? And now the only thing is there is a good crop of younger players coming through, but they're probably just a couple of years too young at the minute to supplement some of these players, But look, future is bright in terms of what's coming in the production line, but you're just worried for this present team. Is there another year? Can they go to the well once more again next year? Like, that's the question. If we were in Leinster, maybe we might get a handy year for get into knockout stages and not have to worry. But in Munster, like, there is no breathing space. Like in Munster, you take your foot off the pedal and you're out.
Yeah, and like you look into how competitive it was this year, but you imagine next year Cork are obviously coming. We know how good the youth has been there, and I'm sure they'll fancy coming out of Munster next year. God knows what will happen in Waterford. Limerick will be Limerick, and Tipperary. I'm sure there'll be a kickback to the last two games as well. But Roy, do you think Lohan will be there next year?
I think so. Look, I think something might they have to freshen up the management team in some way. Look, he's. I suppose look at the two sides of the coin there.
They're playing for him, like they are playing for him.
They are playing for him. He gets a massive response from the players. Like they kind of epitomise what he was as a player, that attitude as well. The only slight things is, as we pointed out here week and week, and Kieran, you've been on about it a lot. Like, they're not improving with this. Like, we looked at them kind of week one after the tip came. We said there isn't a lot to improve here. It's a bit sloppy with the ball in the back line and shot selection, whatever. But like, that's still been there all the way through, and it's just a lack of improvement with things, and just the odd big call on Masha. And I'm wondering as well, like, did Lohan maybe listen to his management team a bit too much? Because I don't think Lohan is a sweeper man. Like, he never was. And I wonder, did he? But look, the buck stops with him anyway. So whether he listens to him or not, it's his decision at the end of it. But maybe, look, I think there needs to be a freshen up. Like, there is Terence Fahey there from the under-20s. Brian O'Connell has done very well with the minors. I think I'd like to keep Brian O'Connell there while we have this talent coming through. Seems to be very good at nurturing it at that age group. But Terence Fahey, maybe even to just come in, because we're going to need some of these under-20s now to start, coming into the team, like Keith Smith there, and as well there, the the couple of lads there as well from E. McNamara from Fecal Killanena coming in as well. And then from the minors in the next couple of years, you've gone in there, who was the captain from Broadford, and Ronan Keane as well from Killanena. Look, there's good talent coming through, and you just want kind of guys maybe that have worked a bit with them, maybe in the management team. So I definitely would think management team definitely needs to freshen up if Lohan is to stay. That would be my view.
Yeah, I think it will be a very interesting off-season, because, there were certain positives here for Clare. Look, the way they competed against Limerick, they won in Limerick in the Gaelic grounds, but geez, for how long? In the round robin. I thought it was a pretty much season highlight. Went toe-to-toe with Limerick. They've gone toe-to-toe with Kilkenny as well, obviously. And the 2-point or the 3-point loss will definitely great here in terms of getting back into the game, that sort of perspective. I suppose it's a key decision for Brian Lohan as well. 4 years in charge now. Does he commit to another 2-3 years? But as you say, Brian O'Connell in the under-20s, will there be a clamour here within Clare to maybe in a year or 2 years' time have a bit of a transition process in place here? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting. The talent's certainly coming through, Rory, in Clare, to be perfectly honest. And I think it'd be a shame for likes of Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, these guys, if they couldn't pick up another silverware probably next season, because I think time is running out for these guys a little bit. And maybe there's massive motivation there. And also Peter Duggan as well, who I thought was very prominent there on Sunday, particularly in that second half, really winning an awful lot of primary ball possession in that half-forward line. Thought he had David Blanchfield in all sorts of trouble, particularly in that third, fourth quarter. So, look, I think there's an awful lot to be positive for Clare. It's the fine margins here, and it's really the shot selection. It's trying to know your squad depth a little bit, particularly in the league. If you're going to experiment with the sweeper, probably not the best place to be doing it in an All-Ireland semi-final, really, to be fair. But
I don't think Clare are going to be taking any moral victories from last year or this year.
Probably not.
But
there was a bit of last year's Munster final was a bit of a moral victory in terms of they're still in it and all that. But from this year, that was gone as of Kilkenny defeat last year, the Ireland semi-final.
I think this year Clare needed some sort of February, if it was just Munster even, just to, I think to bring it into next year. But as you say, like John Conlon, what age is he? 35, 36?
He won an All Ireland under 21 in 2009.
Yeah, so. And he is one of the main guys there, and what he brings, and how do you replace a guy like him? And if Shane O'Donnell, I think it's going to be an interesting winter period in Clare, and I think maybe what's Lohan 4 years done. maybe there's the freshness of a new voice, bring them to a new level. I think there'll be a lot of discussions in Clare this winter, but I don't think they'll be taking moral victories to make it a good year. Either it's been a bad year for Clare. Probably similar to Galway, they've lost the provincial title and by the mere small amount, and it probably fell away, and not to the same extent as Galway, but I think the Clare are probably in the similar situation as Galway going into the winter.
But I suppose all credit to Kilkenny here, guys, as well. I mean, another All-Ireland final appearance, debut season for Derek Ling and management again. Haven't seemed to skip a beat. Like 25 turnovers during that game against Clare as well, guys. Really did show the work rate, and particularly the Billy Ryan, turnover of Ruairi Hayes, particularly for the goal. I mean, does not say everything about Kilkenny hurling. Like Billy Ryan was having a kind of a so-so game, but still had the endeavour, the application, the work rate to anticipate the Quilligan. I thought it was just, should have been down the pitch 5-10 seconds prior, but I suppose, to be honest, Billy Ryan, kind of exuded the Kilkenny spirit here. And look, I think there'll be a live threat coming into the All-Ireland final, and we can certainly preview that next week, guys. We might have a few special guests on from Kilkenny as well for next week. But look, I think there were two kind of intriguing All-Ireland semi-finals. I mean, I thought the second one definitely was excitement until the end. But I mean, Limerick and Kilkenny do battle on Sunday week. I suppose, Ruairi, can we get your comments in terms of the Senior Camogie All-Ireland finals? They were played as curtain raisers to the All-Ireland semi-finals on Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, Tipperary had too much over. Not to side that we expected that would maybe perform a bit better, but Coit Devan probably had other things to say on that. But also the Cork-Kilkenny matchup on the Sunday was thrilling right up until the end. Some officiating again, maybe under the microscope. And I suppose the departure of Brian Dowling subsequently for Kilkenny here. So again, there seems to be a bit of a transitional period here for Kilkenny.
Yeah, and to be honest, Kilkenny threw in a massive performance in that game. They hadn't been going well this year. They'd taken a long time to kind of recover from last year. They had a poor league, and then, as you mentioned, in their group, they drew 2 games and beat Dublin. That's why, they ended up in quarter-final stage, let's say, and Tipperary won that group, which would have been a shock. Like when the draw was made, everybody would have thought All-Ireland champions Kilkenny would come out of that. So they threw in a huge performance, and at one stage, they were typical Kilkenny. They were 5-6 points down, clawed it right back again. Cork would have felt aggrieved. I think a couple of big decisions. There was what looked a penalty coming down the stretch that wasn't given. It had it gone the wrong way, but still, it was it was a great game. And look, it's good to have these matches as a curtain raisers for the semi-finals, because like it gives a chance for people to go and see like the talent that is there and the strength of Camogie. And the other game then, like Tipperary are the surprise package this year. They have they followed up, they backed up a good league with a really strong championship showing. And look, Antrim did well to get to a quarter-final. They're not long up in the senior ranks, but it makes the draw makes for an intriguing semi-finals now, because it's Galway versus Cork, and it gives Tip and Waterford at the other side a chance for a new team in the final. Waterford were in semi-final last year, very unlucky to lose out to Cork in a tight game. Led most of the match as well. They're getting stronger every year. Likes of Kate Lynch at the back, Rachel Walsh, and then up around playing as kind of a loose midfielder as such. Or then you have Beth Carton as well up front, and Waterford have serious talent as well from Tipperary point of view. Then you have as you mentioned, Coit Devan, Eamon McGrath. They've serious potential up front. Casey Hennessy then midfield, so they've scores as well all over the place, and it's going to be makes it the two semi-finals. The way the semi-finals have drawn makes them both really intriguing, because as we know, Galway Cork, like the history they've had over the last 10 years, it's going to be really hard to pick your winner from that one. Galway got the better of them in the league final, and Galway at that stage were still experimenting in the league. Siobhan McGrath was still being rested, and a few players like that. So I think they had 6 or 7 changes from their team that they played in the last All-Ireland, in the All-Ireland semi-final previously, and yet they still beat more or less Cork's full team in that game. So they'll have to repeat that one. And then just the fact, as I mentioned there, that Waterford and Tip, you're going to have a new team in the final that haven't been there, like Waterford. I don't know. I think I don't know when was the last time Waterford in the Ireland Camogie final. Like it could potentially be their first. Tipperary's, had a very strong team maybe 20 years ago, and it'll be their first time in a long time in the final as well. So it gives a real opportunity for those two teams. So they're semi-finals that are worth watching, because either one's going to be really tight to call.
Yeah, I think they're going to be 2 fascinating fixtures. I mean, from a Cork perspective, got the job done just about against Kilkenny. You have to give massive credit to the Kilkenny goalkeeper. I thought was outstanding. was 4 or 5 goal efforts here that should have been goals, didn't. And Denise Gall, what can you say about Denise Gall? Just absolutely phenomenal on the day, single-handedly nearly won the game for Kilkenny. I mean, the player of the match award, compared to 2 player of the match awards, from the All Ireland men's and Camogie. I'm not going to go into too much, but I thought it was a bit embarrassing, really, to be fair. But I mean, Denise Gall was just so undeserving to be losing that game, particularly on the Sunday. But I think the Tipperary Waterford game, I think, just brings a new freshness, doesn't it, to that All Ireland senior Camogie fight. And I mean, like, Waterford had been knocking on the door last year. They were very competitive in the semi-final. So, look, I think it's going to be massively competitive. And I mean, Galway haven't really been blowing teams away this year either. So Cork will really fancy their chances in a one-off game in UPMC Nolan Park. So, look, we'll have a review of those as well in the next week or so. I suppose, guys, it's been a lengthy one tonight. Look, we'll save our powder for the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Final preview next week. I suppose we'll get a few guests on to kind of provide maybe crystal ball predictions here, how things will go. I suppose thanks, Ruairi. Thanks, Kieran, for your time tonight. I suppose, we'll chat next week. Okay, guys, take care.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.